Psh, psh, God, I can't breathe in this thing. Hey, it's your boy KrazyKat, and welcome back to the channel after like a month. Oof. Anyway, I saw Solo: A Star Wars Story opening night, and I wanted to get my review out, as always. So, I've been a little skeptical of this movie, to say the least. As some of you may know, if you watched the video before I enlisted it, I was not a huge fan of Rogue One, at all. I'd sum it up as just dull. Not terrible, not good, just somewhere in the very unimpressive, uninspired middle. Not what I expect from a Star Wars story. To be fair, though, with that one, the story wasn't all that intriguing to me in the first place. Cool, they're delivering a file to the Empire. Yeah, that's much better than blowing up the Death Star, fighting with Darth Vader. You know, great. Like, there's not a ton of reason for that movie to exist in the first place. With this one, though some may say otherwise, I'm one of the few people who had really been anticipating this movie when it was first announced. A whole movie detailing the origins of my favorite Star Wars character whose past is really only disclosed in a few lines here and there, and even then rather ambiguous. That's a pretty cool idea in my opinion. And how did it turn out? Pretty good, actually. I think for this movie you're gonna get everything you wanted to see, and in my opinion, a little more. Han Solo's name? Explained. Where Chewbacca came from? Answered. Did Han Solo have a love interest before Leia? Yes sirree. If you weren't interested in that stuff, either because you're not a dedicated Star Wars fan, or because you're like Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi and you just want the past to die. But me, I'm somewhere in the middle. I thought Rogue One had very one-dimensional characters, and at the end they shoehorned a bunch of the old characters we know and love to remind you, hey, remember these better movies you could be watching instead right now? Haha, those were great. Don't get me wrong, some of that stuff was cool, but it feels like pandering, like a distraction tactic. But here, we're given a solid basis in this character, and from there on, we get to see pretty new stuff. I think for a prequel, you'll find some of this stuff surprisingly refreshing. Not changing the game or anything, but certainly some cool little details for fans, some of which I'll talk about later in the spoiler section. I think one thing this movie does really well is demonstrate the Empire's oppression of the people. You see plenty of planets in poverty, and you're brought to the awful 1984-ish station where this propaganda video is playing with the Imperial March in the background, and it's advertising for people to join the Empire. The originals are really from the perspective of the rebels, but we're not given tons of background on the Empire's regime or what the personal stakes the rebel fighters have in it. In this movie, Han Solo's motivations are actually sort of explained, and we see the resistance to the Empire starting to build up. It's just a nice precursor to the originals. I definitely define these prequels as sort of an added bonus. They're like extended stuff. Yeah, they are filler. Like, let's not get it wrong. It's because, hey, you're waiting for you're obviously waiting for episode 9 to come out. Here's this something that'll tide you a bit over. But I think for that, it's really entertaining, actually. So, characters. I don't know, let's just get into this. There's Han Solo, played by Alden Ehrenreich, whose last name I hate with a passion, just on pronunciation alone. His mannerisms match that of Harrison Ford's to a T. Sure, he doesn't look the most like Han Solo, but I think he nailed imitating his performance. There's Woody Harrelson, who plays Tobias Beckett. His performance is inconsistent here and there, but I think he's a fairly interesting character, especially considering this is a one-off. We also have Kira, played by Deborah Lee Smith. She's sort of the stereotypical love interest in the beginning, but her character becomes much more complex later on, which I'll touch on briefly later. There's Lando Calrissian, helmed by Donald Glover / Childish Gambino. He is excellent in this film. Everything you could expect from a young version of this character. Then we have this female droid who's been deemed the SJW by. Woo! I enjoy this character quite a bit. She has some pretty great lines, though not quite as entertaining as the droid in Rogue One, personally, which is really one of the few redeeming qualities about Rogue One. But I did not get some of the political undertones of this character. Yes, indulge me. I'm dissecting the political agenda of an action movie in space. I'm sorry for creating this channel, but seriously, what's going on? Whenever she opens her mouth and talks about droid liberation, which seems like a reasonable issue to be concerned about to me, Lando and everyone start rolling their eyes. Is this making fun of the robot, or the people who don't care about this stuff? Or is it just kind of shoehorned in the script and not taken super seriously by the writers? No, that is impossible. Clearly, the director and the producers and everyone was trying to say something deep and political, and just trying to create a cultural moment. Clearly. If you're not looking into this, you're probably not an intellectual. The other characters I can't really get into right now because that would go into spoiler territory. And guess what? Now we're going to talk about spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it or something. But who am I kidding? Most of you will probably just catch it on Netflix anyway. It's gotten $11 million so far, which is a new low for Star Wars movies in history. So, there's a few minor characters that show up in the trailer. And yeah, they die within the first 20 minutes of the film, which does sort of segue into some of my main gripes about this film. One, the pacing in this movie is way too fast. Holy crap. This movie never has me bored, which is a plus, but there are some parts of this movie I can't consider too fulfilling because of it. Like, for instance, Lando and Solo's relationship isn't really earned. I mean, when Lando and Solo hug it out at the end, you're like, okay, this is like the one time they've like interacted with each other. Like, they gambled a bit, and now they're calling each other like best friends already. Okay, you just gotta use your suspension of disbelief powers there. 2, my main problem with this, and really kind of my main problem with Rogue One as well, is that we're introduced to these characters who don't really reveal too much about themselves, and then boom, they're killed off. And we're expected to care. Considering there were directors they cut out of this thing, there's bound to be some deleted scenes in there that develop some of these people a bit more. But in this one, there's just like a campfire scene, and then boom, they're in the action. And then a few of them just die. They're sort of shameless plot devices to propel the story forward, which is fine. Like, I'm glad that it went into a direction that wasn't too predictable, but still, he could have used a little more. 3, I would have liked to see some flashbacks to some of Han Solo's past here and there, as that's not something that was all that explained when we first met him in A New Hope. But I understand that's not really the story they wanted to tell, and it would probably make it a little jumbled. So I was reasonably content with the dialogue that talked about it. He's not really too sentimental of a guy, given his background, so it makes sense. Those are my main complaints of this movie, but I'm really kind of lenient with it, to be honest, because I did want the story to be told, and making these prequels where they have to introduce new things for old characters, keep new and old fans happy, and make sure those, new characters we haven't seen don't appear in any other film, is a big task. Added to that, you have the production problems. This stuff is to be expected. And I think the damage control was pretty good. That's That's the best way I can really put it. Now let's get into some of the twists and turns. I think all of the in-universe crap in this movie is super neat, alright? At the end, Solo decides to lean towards being the good guy. And, you know, it's not just, oh, well, this needs to happen in the story. There's a little speech about it. You know, we see him throughout the movie just going more towards that direction. So he gives up the coaxium he found to the Marauders, who wanted it to assist them in their opposition to Crimson Dawn, an organization that Han Solo was doing the mission for in the first place, just to make him some cash so he could buy a new ship and run off with his girlfriend in the sunset or whatever. But they turn out to be an organization shelling out for the Empire and other things. I thought that was a pretty cool setup for his character that we see in the original trilogy. Also, he says, "Don't hold your breath, kid," to the leader of the group, a line he said to Luke once. But the bigger twist here is that Kira, a pretty morally ambiguous and complex character in general, talks to Darth Maul. I was not expecting that. I was pretty thrilled to see him appear. Yeah, it was a surprise. But dang, for a second, I will admit I was confused. This clip from a channel called Only Lee, I'll link that channel down below, I think sums it up best.
So, what's the timeline of this? Is it like before all the other movies?
No. Before episode 4, after episode 3.
But after Rogue One.
No. Wait, yes?
Doesn't that technically make it episode 4?
It doesn't work that way.
A New Hope should technically be episode 7.
The Force Awakens is episode 7.
What about the TV shows? Do they count?
The Clone Wars TV show is after episode 2.
So episode 3 is episode 4.
Episode 3 is episode 3.
Return of the Jedi.
Revenge of the Sith.
How do the novelizations calculate into this?
No one reads books.
That's true.
Please don't copyright strike me, Hishe. I think it's fair use. God, I hope it is. Man, Disney has really been a fan of, spoilers, doing cameos for villains previously thought to be dead, huh? So overall, I give Solo: A Star Wars Story a light 7 out of 10. Far from a perfect film, but definitely enjoyable, and had much more substance than expected. I don't think everyone's gonna love this movie, to be perfectly clear with you. But I'm glad it was made. If you weren't invested in seeing a feature-length film about this character, or you hold Star Wars to so high of a standard, think every film has to be perfect, or you just not a Star Wars fan in general, then this film is not going to change your mind. But this is just my review, and I personally had a good time with it, despite its fairly significant flaws. So just to let you guys know, as of the moment, I'm going to see Deadpool 2 pretty soon, which I'm very excited for. I've heard decent things about it. It's unlikely I'll be able to put out a video review of that, but follow my Twitter, which I always link down below, if you'd like to see my thoughts on that. And I'm tweeting about other movies and stuff. Anyway, I will be, unfortunately, out of town for the next 2 weeks and change, but I'm seriously gonna try to edit and upload the MC review video when I get back, and I'll definitely be doing a video about that incredible sequel that's coming out. Overall, I'm just hoping to get more videos out over the summer, hopefully some longer, more thorough ones. I have one on The Walking Dead in mind. Hopefully that comes to fruition. I've already started working on the script for it. I won't make any promises, as I do have plenty of stuff I need to do over the summer, but it is one of my goals. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe, and hit the bell notifications button if you like the rest of my content. For some reason, comment what you thought of Solo: A Star Wars Story if you've seen it, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Mighty roar. I'm planning to take an online course this summer because I wanna be able to learn Wookiee. Here, let me try. I don't got it. I got a lot. I got